Hello and welcome to Ivory Blush Roses. My name is Lisa and today we're stitching seam 6 on the autumn pillow for my CQtober project. Today we're going to choose another stitch and hopefully see if we can get this center area finished up. I have all of the little stitches on things here, so we want to choose one of them. That feels like one. Let's see what we have. Today's stitch is feather stitch. That's wonderful. It's one of my absolute favorite stitches to stitch, and I've got the perfect spot for it. On our block here, we have this seam here that I would like to finish, and so I think we're going to stitch it right there, and I'm going to put up over here, and that will be counter to some of these others right in the area. So we're going to stitch feather stitch right there. I'm going to use my hoop and embroidery frame that I used last time. That made such a difference. It was really amazing to me what a difference it made. So we're going to try it again. Just holding that nice and taut, and I've delinted everything, so hopefully try it again here, see if we can get a little bit more of that cat hair off of there. Because no matter how hard I try, I cannot keep Mushu off of this project. So let me get this set up in the frame and my edges pinned back, and we'll be right back. Let's choose some threads here. But we've got lots of black and brown and yellow and orange. So we're going to want a contrast, but I've used red on 2 of these, so I don't want to use red. But gosh, a nice green would be wonderful. Something that shows up nice and bright. So we have this one. So the green shows up beautifully. That's definitely a possibility. We used that gold as a center here. We could use a nice orange. Let's take a look at this one. This is that size 8 variegated, and it's got all these colors in it. On those dark fabrics, it just can blend in at the dark. It's got the wrong mix. Somehow, I think the brown is going to be too dark and not show up well. And as I said last time, this is, for me, always the hardest part of choosing threads. It's just hard to know which ones to go with. We have that darker orange, which I also really like. Let's look for one of these that's maybe a little lighter and brighter. Well, actually, let's look at this one. Let me take this darker one out of the mix so we can see. Now, I like that one. I really wish it was more the darker color. So far, I think this is the one I'm liking the best. It's the most different from everything that we've been doing. And I think we've used this one quite a bit. I like this one a lot as well. So which one do we prefer? I think one that's all darker or one that's got a little more light in it. I think I actually like the one with the light in it. Well, that might be the fastest thread decision I've made in a long time. So we know we're going to use that, and we're going to use this green. I have no doubts about that one. I'm pretty happy with that choice. We do have this green as well. And actually, that might be nice, bringing in some of this warmer green instead of just always the cooler green. Let's do that. So have a new green in there. All right, well, let me get my needles threaded. All that cat hair. My gosh, I've taken the lint brush to this 3 times here in the last 5 minutes, and it's still there. Well, that's just the way life is at my house. You have kitties, you have cat hair, especially with a white cat. We're just going to do a regular feather stitch. So this is the one that's going to zigzag a little bit back and forth. When you're making those stitches, one side of the V is far over to one side, and the other one is just barely on the other fabric, and the bottom of the V comes up in the fabric on the first side. So there we go. So that one's a little bit big just because we're getting around all of this other stitching that's there. And so this one is going to come up. We're going to make this slightly smaller, I think. Let's see how this goes. So the bottom of that V is on this corduroy fabric. And now the bottom of this one is in this black backed velveteen. Like I said, feather stitch is one of my favorite stitches. Having this in the hoop allows me to stitch with a little more tension on the thread, and I can still see what I'm doing, and I'm not pulling too tight, and I'm not having to leave it looser due to the nap of the fabric, and I think that really helps. So this first part of this is going to go really fast. There's another cat hair. I try to keep from stitching them in if I can, because they're a lot harder to get out once they're woven into the fabric. And so when I'm doing this, I'm just bringing the top of that out straight. And there are lots of ways of doing this, but this was just the way I prefer for a stitch like this. And I'm going to come straight over. And so ideally, this thread comes straight down this line and goes there. Now you can certainly make it shallower. Sometimes I do it and it looks really boxy, really square, and other times the V's are more prominent. So it just depends on the look that you're after. And I stitch this stitch so often that I don't even think about it anymore. I just stitch it and it comes out. So when I'm telling you about it, I have to stop and think for a minute about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it that way. But I'm just coming up in line with that other one. I do have a harder time feeling through these cotton velveteens and corduroy where my needle is coming up at. I always feel like I stab my fabric a couple of times before I decide on the exact place that I want my needle to come up at. I didn't get that one quite as far out, but that's all right. It'll work. We're kind of avoiding those sheaf stitches there. That one, I'm just going to bring it down diagonally, but I'm not going to do the corresponding upward one. So there's that. So just a basic feather stitch seam, and I like the color of it. I'm happy with the scale of it. So let me just flip this over, and I'm going to make my knot. And trim that off. And we're done with that one. Now we need to decide what we want to add to it. And again, let me look at our list here. We've got French knots, lazy daisies, pistol stitch, straight stitch, and twisted lazy daisy. Now we've done French knots, we've done pistol stitch, we've done lots of lazy daisies, and we've done a few straight stitches and twisted lazy daisies. I would like to do a combination of twisted lazy daisy and lazy daisies on this one. We're going to need a third color on this one. What color do we want? Maybe I need to think about that for a moment. So my thought is we're going to bring the twisted lazy daisy out of the center here, and then maybe do a lazy daisy here in the green. That's kind of my thought. Lazy daisies, because it's a stitch that ends at the top, I'd rather work from the bottom and work my way up. And again, we're trying not to make more than a total of 3 passes. So we have the main stitch and then 1 or 2 extra things on it. So far, the only ones we've done 3 on is this one and this one down here. This will be the 3rd stitch. The others we've all had only 2 passes on. We'll come out straight to the side. I was going to go underneath the hoop. That doesn't work very well. This is where I have to pay attention. I pulled that a little tight, but we're going to leave it for now. Get rid of that cat hair. And by coming up straight off the side like that, it adds a little width, but it also adds visual interest, so everything's not going in quite the same direction. I guess as I'm thinking about this, I wonder if it'd be less thread if we go up one side and down the other. I'm just going to keep going the way I am right now just because that's the way I'm used to working. It doesn't mean there's not a different or better way to do it. I like to come up right at that end. And I pulled that basting thread right through. That black fabric is hard to see where my needle is. So I hope your fall is off to a good start. Mine is definitely turning out to be busy with stitching and filming and editing every single day, but I'm enjoying it now that my editing is not having issues. I still haven't figured out what was going wrong. Our trees are just starting to turn, which is nice. Seems a little delayed this year from what we've had in the past, but it's still been awfully warm. Nice cool mornings. I'll speed this up so we don't have to do this all in real time here, because you've seen one lazy daisy, you've seen them all. And remember, the goal with this is just to keep things relatively simple, because my tendency is to want to make these really fancy seams, but I want this one to be just a simple project, simple seams, and that's why we're limiting it to no more than 2 additions. And I find there's an elegance in simplicity that's really pleasant sometimes. And I love that with crazy quilting, because we have so much room for possibilities, and we live in a day and age where you can make it your own, and you don't have to do it the same way everybody else is doing it. So if you want to put everything in the world on it, you can do that, and if you like it slim and sparse, you can do that. My preference is always to focus on the embroidery. That's the thing I think, to me, is the heart of crazy quilting. I have a quilt lecture that I do for quilt guilds about the heart of crazy quilting, where we talk a little bit about the history and what makes crazy quilting versus sane quilting, as we often say in the crazy quilting world. Am I gonna wish I'd made my thread just a few inches longer here? We'll see. Oh, and I twisted that one. Don't want to do that. Yep, we're gonna need another thread just for the last 3 lazy daisies. Isn't that the way it goes? Alright, let's turn that over. It won't turn over that way because of the thing. Let's knot that. Let's get these last 3 done. I'm not going to do one on this side because it's going to compete with what's already there. So I'm just going to go straight up. So we actually only had 2 lazy daisies to finish. And that's going to run into that other seam here. So, well, do you see what I did there? I just totally missed my loop here. I just pulled it all the way down. So we just stitch another one. All right. Let's turn that over and knot that off. What are we going to do next for that twisted lazy daisy? I mean, we could just do the same one that we did with the feather stitch as well. I keep thinking about this one. I think this one's going to end up getting left out. I thought it was going to be good for French knots since it picks up some of those other colors, but I'm just not happy with it. Part of me would love to go with some gold, but I'd like to do some seams without this brighter color. I'm kind of wishing I had a brighter orange. We could do that one. Let's do that one. It'll be just a subtle difference, but I think it'll be nice. So I think on this particular seam, we have done all size 12 threads. And because we got good contrast, that worked out really well. Now this one, we're going to kind of work from the top down because it ends downward. So I want to start back a little bit away from my leaves. Let's see if did I get that right? Yes. And we're going to bring it right down into that V. I like that. So this is a stitch that is relatively new to me. I've not done a lot of this one before, but I've been watching a lot of Jennifer Clouston lately, and she uses this all the time, and it's just got a grand effect. Always enjoyed her work, and I've especially lately, the later things that I'm seeing her do, I just really am enjoying it. Yeah, that really makes that seem fun, doesn't it? And I'm getting my end twisted around here. Let's see if we can get, almost looks like I stitched right through it. I'm not sure how it happened, but we're just going to cut off that end there and free it up. So I'm going to bring it up. I'm finding it easiest to sort of twist it that way to figure out where I'm at. So this one I've already got my twist going, but I like to see where my needle's coming up at. And that thread is just enough brighter that it really shows up as being different, which I'm enjoying. So I think these stitches look better if you come away a little farther from the ends, so where it's a little longer this direction. I find that if I come too close to these ends, I don't like the way the stitch looks as well, so I'm better if it comes a little way away, and then making sure I'm not pulling too tight, but tight enough. I want to see that crossover in there, in that loop. That's what gives it that flower bud look. And if you make it too short, it tends to disappear. At least that's what I feel like I'm finding. There's a cat hair in there. There's a couple in there. Poor Mushu. He's just always getting picked on. I love the little bit of variation that shows up in these as I stitch, both in color and in size and shape. I think it's just fun. Are we going to have enough thread to finish this one? I'm going to have a short stemmed one here. It's going to be close, folks. Two more. That one a little tight. Definitely prefer them when they're a little looser. Got my loose end caught there. There we go. All right, let me turn this over. Get that knotted, and then we'll take it off the frame and take a look at it. Feather stitch, as I've said so many times, is my favorite stitch. And I really love that one. I'm just happy with the way it turned out. Really pleased with it. So let's get this off the thing and I will show it to you in a minute. Well, I don't know about you, but I am just thrilled with how this is turning out. I'm loving the stitching, and I'm really glad we have this center area now pretty well secure. I think we're now going to move out to this next layer of stitches around it. I'm so grateful for your support and encouragement. I hope you're having fun stitching along with me, maybe trying out some new stitches or new combinations of stitches. Have a beautiful day. Thanks for watching. Happy stitching, and I'll see you tomorrow.